Okay, a Phoenix model Edge 540. Took it out of the box, started putting things together. The first modification I did was get rid of these CA hinge things. I prefer the nylon ones by Dubro, the pin hinges. They just move a lot easier and a lot more solid. Plane's pretty big. I did put the stabilizer on, obviously, and control surfaces, and we're going to probably put the landing gear on next and some electronics. Okay, install the landing gear. It's a two-piece carbon gear. Does not come with holes drilled, so you got to drill your own holes. Make sure you measure twice and drill once. Also, you got to drill these holes out and install the wheel pants and wheels. Make sure these Loctite, obviously. Tail section, the instructions say to mount this rudder plate way back here, which doesn't actually efficiently turn this wheel when the rudder turns. So mount this rudder plate as far forward as possible and mount this where the bend is, pretty much flush with the end of the fuselage. The springs, maybe get some aftermarket ones. These ones I'm just going to actually solder on to there so they don't pop off on the ground when I need it the most. And that's all I've done so far. I'll update you later. Okay, so some other modifications I did is I got rid of the plastic things, the plastic bolts that hold on the canopy, and also the wings. Instead I put actual hardware in there. I forgot what size that was, but this is all American, not metric, and this bolt is actually half the size of the other one it came with, and has a Phillips on there, so it's not going to take me 20 minutes to screw two sides in. And then also another modification was in the manual, it wants you to drill a hole through the top of the wing through the wing joiner, so I guess the wing doesn't fly off when you're flipping it around. I thought that was stupid and also ugly, so what I did was I went to my local hardware store and got some all thread. This one's about 6 inches long. They usually come in 12 inches, but you can always get a Dremel and cut them down. I actually took one of these and cut it in half, and I epoxied it inside there. I'm only going to do one side. I'm not going to do the other side. The other side I'll put the nylon bolt through. Not the nylon bolt that it comes with, but the one I actually bought from the store, which is a lot better quality. So the nylon bolt is going to bolt in the same way as it's supposed to. The only difference is that's going to poke through the plane, and I'm going to put a wing nut on there. That is actually epoxied down in there, and I cut this in half, so it's about 3 inches here and 3 inches on the other wing. And that shouldn't go anywhere. Also, the nut that screws into is nylon, and I took some glue from the inside and gooped it all up in there. Same on this side. I wanted to put a blind nut in there, but my fingers are just too big and I didn't want to drop that thing way down there, so I just epoxied what I had in there, and that's nice and solid. Put a wing nut on there and you can roll this thing at 100 miles an hour and you'll be fine. So that takes care of the ugly bolt through the wing issue. One more thing, these tail wheel assembly comes with 2 wood screws and 2 machine screws. Now there's no blind nuts or anything anywhere back here, so I did use the machine screws, and what I did was I just drilled out a hole and then I threaded it with the screw itself. I dropped some thin CA in there, and then I put the screws in with the rudder tray or rudder plate, and everything seems to be just fine. Install the servos on the wings, 1, 2, as well as the control horns on the wings, elevators, and rudder. The control horns were pretty straightforward and easy to install. I did notice that the screws to screw the back plate into the control horn were quite long, but they did work, Everything's fine. That's very simple. And as always, when I screw in my servo screws, I take them all back out, put a drop of thin CA in each hole, and re-screw them in so that they are snug and tight. This particular model I used 6-inch extensions from the servo to come out here, and I glued it right here so the wires don't fall back in there. So that's 6-inch extensions I used, and I haven't cut out the hole yet, but it's going to be right about here where the servo extensions go through. And as you can see, I cut out a hole here, and that is going to be for the wing, to secure the wing, because in the manual they want me to drill a hole through this wing tube to keep the wings from flying off in the air. But I don't want a big ugly screw through my wing, so I noticed when I put the wing on, there was a little piece of wood from one of the ribs that actually had backing on it that I'm going to put a hook on both sides, and once I slide the wings on, I will put a holder, maybe I'm not sure what I'm going to use yet, but it'll hold the two wings together, and we'll get into that later on. Okay, so I installed the motor in the gas tank. Not really any modifications that I used, except I changed the hardware to some good stuff. Tank went in no problem. This particular tank comes from the factory with a 3-line tank, so it's an exhaust, carb, and fill. So I went ahead and decided to use that. So since my carb is a little bit lower than the gas tank, I went ahead and just wrapped up the fuel line to the carb so it doesn't flood when I fill it with my fill. And the exhaust is obviously plugged into the exhaust down here, and the exhaust goes directly underneath the plane, so when I put the cowl on, there shouldn't be a lot of cutting, and it should be nice and stealth and pretty. And next we're gonna go ahead and I have all the servos in the back installed. We're gonna run them up, plug them into the receiver, battery, install the throttle servo, and go from there. Okay, so I was looking for a place to put the switch. This is where I came up with it right here. There's not really a lot of options, honestly, to put the switch without running into the wings. So I chose here, and I guess you could put it on the other side if you wanted to. And another, not really a problem that I came across. It's not really a problem, but it's helpful to know. These little control horns that they supply you with, the screw can only go in through one way. You can't put it through the other way. So on the right elevator, you have to put the screw in from behind, which is impossible. So it's a real easy fix. All you do is just unscrew the top of the horn, a couple cranks, and you can twist this 180 degrees, put the screw in to attach the push rod, straighten it back up, and then tighten it back down. So it's not really a big deal, but to save some time, just, you know, do that before you screw it down and Loctite it and everything. Okay, last thing I wanted to go over with this whole setup was these rods it comes with. You know, they're pre-cut and they're pretty close, but I couldn't get my servo arm exactly straight. I actually wanted to use the inside hole. There's two holes on the outside and inside, and I wanted to use the inside hole so I get more throw, but it's absolutely impossible with these push rods. So if you want to use longer arms here and use the inside holes here, you're gonna have to change these rods. No way around it. Okay, and the rest of everything was fine. Make sure you have enough rod threaded into here, obviously. Put your nut on, Loctite everything, and everything's pretty solid. Okay, so we're a little late on this, but I did install the throttle servo. Comes with a throttle cable, as well as the the push rod sleeve that goes from here, obviously, to the throttle linkage. Mounted the receiver here, zip tied everything. I haven't got it yet, but the battery, I ordered a 5-cell, which is 6 volts, 3000 milliamp battery, and I'm gonna stick it right here. The plane is tail heavy. Once I put this battery here, I still think I'm gonna have to add a little bit of weight to the nose, but it's just a little bit of weight. I got the satellite down there. Again, the receiver's right here wrapped up. Cowls on. Drilled out some holes for the high valve. I got a hole down here for the igniter, and I got my fill for fuel. The cowl fits on nice. The spinner it comes with is pretty flimsy. Two-stroke, but this thing has got plenty of room if you want to put a DLE or DA 20cc gasoline engine. But anyways, definitely recommend the exhaust deflector because, you know, for obvious reasons. And maybe next time you guys can cut that a little closer. But that's that. And I've started it, ran it, tried to break in this motor. And I'll be taking it to the field in a day or two to start it up and let it run a little while, then actually get this thing in the air. Okay, last thing before I put this thing in the air. While I was putting it together a couple of times, I noticed where the wing comes through and I screw it on. It's a little weak, a little flimsy. It's just, that's actually balsa right here. So I'm just gonna get a piece of ply and epoxy it right there and drill a hole, obviously, so when the wing screws in and I put the wing nut on, it's nice and solid right there. And this plane was tail heavy, and I actually got a big, it's a 6 volt 3300 milliamp. These are all sub C's, and it's pretty heavy. I don't like adding unnecessary weight to the plane, so I figured I'd just put a big battery, and I'm just gonna stick it up here at the very front as far forward as I can, wrap it up and zip tie it, and that should balance the plane out just right. Okay, this was the first successful flight. It did fly 2 other times and dead sticked in the air and landed way out there. Luckily it didn't break. Today I actually landed it, was coming in a little hot, so I killed the engine right before touchdown. It does like to float a lot. So, not a bad plane. I'm still getting used to it, and I'll post another video once I'm used to it and start doing maneuvers and 3D stuff and some hovering. So right now I'm still breaking in the motor, and that's going pretty well. This is the Phoenix model Edge 540 with a Evolution 120 2-stroke.